200 civilians, and actually there's probably more because I just checked the news last night, but 200 civilians have been killed by the military government in Myanmar recently. You know where Myanmar is? It's like south of China on the other side of the world. And somebody shared this from Myanmar with a friend who we're connected with, I'm connected with on Facebook, and he said this. He says, "We cannot go out because they have an order to shoot. Everything is closed and food prices are getting higher and people are running out of food. We hear gunshots everywhere. My wife and sister will deliver their babies in a month, and we don't know how things will be. We can't even get an appointment with the doctor. We don't know what will happen. Please pray. It's a risk just to buy food. Rumors of war are everywhere." And this is a message from somebody living in our world, in a country called Myanmar on the other side of our globe, just from a couple weeks ago. And what kind of feelings, what kind of emotions well up inside of you when you hear a story like that? Because we think like having a baby in COVID times is hard, and it certainly is. But here is a families that, they can't even get a doctor's visit for their newborn and their pregnant wife or mom, And they can't even really go outside because, well, the military takeover has the command to shoot and to kill. How do you get food? Like, sure, okay, you have a baby with no medical care in your own home. And then what? Then you got to feed yourself. You got to feed your baby. Maybe you have other children around. And how do you feed them if you can't go out and food? What feelings come up, well up inside of you? Where do they come from? And why do you feel that way? And what difference does it make? Why does it matter? Those are some of the questions that we're going to talk about today in a message that I am calling What Moves You? So turn to your neighbor and ask them that question. What moves you? What moves you? If you're online, type it in the chat. What moves you? Like I said, this is Palm Sunday. It's the day that we as Christians celebrate Jesus coming down the mountain into Jerusalem. And there is a big celebration. The crowds, the followers of Jesus are celebrating and praising Jesus, saying, "King, Messiah, Hosanna, save now." It's a huge celebration. They're laying their garments down. They're laying their palm branches down. And couple days later, the same crowd is going to be chanting the exact opposite. Instead of chanting for his praises, they're going to be chanting for his execution. They're going to be saying, "Kill him, crucify him." But thankfully, that's not the end of the story. It's the reason we're here today. That couple days, 3 days later, after his crucifixion, he rose again from the grave. He is alive today, and that is what we celebrate next week for Easter. And I hope, again, that you will be here and bring someone along with you to celebrate that. But we're going to look today at what Luke tells us about this Palm Sunday event. This historical event that happened in a not so insignificant city of Jerusalem in the Middle East there, almost 2,000 years ago. And so if you have your Bible, I encourage you to turn with me to Luke chapter 19. And if you don't have your Bible, that's okay. The words will be on the screen behind me. And we would love to give you a free Bible before you leave today. Just stop by that New Here area in the lobby, and we'll make sure you get home with a free Bible because we want you to have one. And so this account that we're going to look at was written by a guy named Luke. He was a disciple of Jesus, a follower of Jesus. And he wrote down all of the things that he experienced with Jesus. And he wrote this, again, about 2,000 years ago. And in Luke chapter 19, this is what he says about this day. We're going to set the scene. He says, after telling this story, Jesus went on towards Jerusalem, walking ahead of his disciples. And as he came to the towns of Bethphage and Bethany on the Mount of Olives, he sent 2 disciples ahead. He said, go into that village over there, he told them, and as you enter it, you will see a young donkey tied there that no one has ever ridden. Untie it and bring it here. And if anyone asks, why are you untying that colt? Just say, the Lord needs it. I love it. Go steal someone's donkey. So they went and found the colt, just as Jesus had said, of course, because Jesus knows everything. And sure enough, as they were untying it, the owner asked them, why are you untying that colt? And the disciples simply replied, the Lord needs it. And so they brought the colt to Jesus and threw their garments over it for him to ride on. And as he rode along, the crowd spread out over their garments on the road ahead of him. And when he reached the place where the road started down the Mount of Olives, all his followers began to shout and sing as they walked along, praising God for all the wonderful miracles they had seen. Blessings on the King who comes in the name of the Lord, peace in heaven and glory in the highest heaven. But some of the Pharisees among the crowd said, Teacher, rebuke your followers for saying things like that. And he replied, if they kept quiet, the stones along the road would burst into cheers. It's an amazing, magnificent scene. Jesus is fulfilling prophecy, riding down on a donkey. I mean, kings don't ride donkeys, right? Kings ride horses. And Jesus is doing what the Old Testament prophet Zechariah prophesied. He's coming down on a donkey. And the king, or the crowds are treating him like a king. They're praising him. They're shouting. They're putting their garments down. They're placing the palm branches down. They're praising God. And of course, the Pharisees, they did not like that very much. And I just love what Jesus responds to them. He's just like, look, it is time to sing. It is time to dance. It is time to praise. The king is here. And if they don't do it, those inanimate objects you see over there that I created, they will. They will praise. It is time to praise God, to praise Jesus. And sometimes it's the beautiful, amazing, wonderful things that move us, isn't it? You're standing at the edge of a canyon looking out over miles and miles, and it's something inside of your soul is stirred up. It's, wow, this is awesome. You're looking at a mountain range and you just see for miles, and it's so majestic and it's so beautiful, and you feel something in your soul. Or maybe when you see a newborn baby for the first time, or you get to hold one and you're just holding them in their arms, and it's just like overcome with emotion, overcome with beauty, overcome with amazement. Or when your son or daughter succeed and they do something incredible. They learn how to walk. They learn how to talk. They get a good grade on that test. They score a goal in their game. They do well in something that they're participating in. There's something inside of us that just gets excited, that gets moved, that gets overwhelmed with emotion. Maybe it's when your favorite sports team wins the championship for the first time in maybe hundreds of years, and it's a celebration, it's a party, and it's like you can't even contain it. You'll climb up a light post because why not? Because that's how you celebrate, right? At least you do in Philadelphia. But then we read this part of the story, and this is where we're going to spend our time today. As he came closer to Jerusalem, he saw the city ahead, and he began to what? What did he do? He wept. How I wish today that you of all people would understand the way to peace. But now it is too late, and peace is hidden from your eyes, Jesus says. Before long, your enemies will build ramparts against your walls and encircle you and close you in from every side. They will crush you into the ground and your children with you. Your enemies will not leave a single stone in place because you did not recognize it when God visited you. And this is one of the awesome things about Jesus, is that he experienced life like you and like me experience. Like he knows what it's like to live this life, and he knows what it's like to cry, to be overcome with emotion, to be moved to tears. Do you know the other time in the Bible where it says Jesus cried? The Apostle John records for us in John chapter 11, verse 35, the shortest verse in the Bible. Does anyone know that verse? Jesus wept. What happened? Jesus' friend, one of his great friends, Lazarus, died. And as a result, Jesus wept. Now, this story is pretty incredible because, spoiler alert, Jesus brings back Lazarus from the dead. Okay? Like that's going to happen. But to start the whole story, Jesus is called by Lazarus' sisters to come and to heal their brother. They said, Lazarus is sick. We need you. You're a miracle worker. You're a healer. We've seen you do this before. Come here, heal our friend, heal our brother, and do this thing. And Jesus says, not right now. 3 days, a couple days went by, and Jesus finally comes to Lazarus. And by the time he gets there, it's too late. Lazarus has died. And as you can imagine, Lazarus' sisters are pretty upset at Jesus. Why didn't you get here faster? What was the delay for? And they're crying because their brother had died. And what did Jesus do? He cried too. And it's a beautiful thing about Jesus, because he knew he was going to raise him from the dead. You know, he didn't just laugh at the sisters. He didn't just, make fun of them and doubt their faith. Jesus didn't do that. He met them right where they were. And he cried with them. And I believe that Jesus does the exact same thing for you and for me. That when we're overcome with emotion, when we're moved to tears, Jesus is crying right there with you. He knows what that's like. He is there with you in that moment. And then Jesus, of course, raises Lazarus from the dead, and it's a celebrating time. But Jesus chose to experience this emotion of being moved to tears because he wanted to identify with them and with us. And so, what makes you cry? Some people express all of their emotions with tears. Happy, sad, and I'm probably one of those people. And it's a good thing, and it's not a so good thing. It's just you feel something and it just comes out in tears. I remember one time I was sitting in my pastor's office years ago, and a lady came in, and she was really struggling with something and just bawling. And we got her some tissues. We brought it over onto the couch, and, she's blowing her nose and wiping her eyes. And I'm sitting near her, and I have to force myself or fight myself to get to the emotional place where she is. It's hard for me to get to that level. And I know that's what Jesus did. And I want to try and be like Jesus and follow Jesus. And I think it's important and healthy when you're counseling somebody. If you ever want to come to me for counseling, just warning you. But I try my best to get to that place, to meet the person where they are. But I'm admittedly not that great at it. Thank you. So what makes you cry? Jesus cried when his friend died, when he saw the pain and the sorrow of his friend's sisters. He cried about that. And then we read that he cried again here in Luke chapter 19 at this triumphal entry scene when he saw the people, when he saw the city ahead. And I do like this because you just imagine coming down off of the mountain and you just see up ahead, up on the hill, the beautiful city of Jerusalem. It's magnificent. It's amazing. It's incredible. And it's a perfect view. And Jesus is overcome in that moment with emotion and tears. And I think this is something important to press into real quick. Because isn't it people that get us the most emotional? Like, sure, you have a connection with your pet or a possession or an experience. But really, it's people, right? People that move us. People that stir our hearts. We feel for and because of our fellow man and woman. And we hear stories like the families in Myanmar that are dealing with such difficulty and tragedy, and it just stirs our hearts. We empathize with their situation, and we just wonder, like, what if that was me? What if I was in that situation? Could I imagine having a baby at home with no medical care? Can't even go to the doctor. I can't even go out to buy food. We just feel for them. And so, what makes you cry? And what people move you? And maybe it's not necessarily the stories about families in Myanmar that move your heart. You're like, where is Myanmar, right? Maybe for you, it's more local. Maybe you've heard the stories in the news lately or over the years about just tragic stuff that has happened. And it's like something inside of our hearts is just like moved and stirred and wow, you know. Maybe you're thinking of the young Amish girl that not so long ago was abducted and presumably murdered. It's like that's right here. That's in our town. That's in our county. And you just feel for the family. You feel for those in the community. You feel for just the whole situation is just something inside of us that is moved with compassion, with empathy, with sympathy. Well, the other day I was sitting across the table from somebody, and he was sharing with me something that happened in Lidditz like 30 years ago. And my heart is just like coming out of my chest, like I can't believe that happened in our backyard. What they did to that girl, just, oh my, like it hurts. Or maybe you feel for the homeless man or woman that you see when you get off the exit ramp. Or as you enter into the shopping center and you see them standing there. Maybe you feel for the people doing drugs in the park or on the street. For the people so lonely they're drinking themselves to sleep every night. You feel for people out of a job, fighting a sickness or an illness, cancer, COVID. You feel for students and kids that are just trying to make a sense of this crazy world that we live in. What people move you? All of these stories we just talked about have such personal connections, such touch points, such stirring in our souls they cause, these feelings to come about. But back to Jesus' triumphal entry, because everything for Jesus seemed great, right? It's the triumphal entry for a reason. Everyone's shouting his praises. Everybody is glorifying him. Everybody is worshiping him. Everybody is praising him, and they're cheering for him. But Jesus is crying? That doesn't seem right. Why cry in a moment like that? Well, it's because Jesus saw something that nobody else saw. Jesus knew that the city was going to be destroyed. He knew that all of his efforts to avert the tragedy had been repulsed and rejected. And Jesus knew that in some short 40 years, the entire city of Jerusalem was going to be leveled. And Jesus saw that. This is exactly what Luke records Jesus saw. He said, "Before long, your enemies, they'll build ramparts against your walls and encircle you and close you in from every side. They will crush you into the ground and your children with you, and your enemies will not leave a single stone in place. And as exactly as Jesus predicted or foretold, it happened. You're like, Kevin, can you show me where the proof is for that? Well, I can, but it's not where you might think it would be. Like, it's not in your Bible, which is really interesting because it is significant evidence to a very important point that all of the books that are in our Bible were written, most likely, before 70 AD. Because otherwise, they would have included this incredibly historic event. And so just think about that, the reliability of our scriptures, of the people who wrote them, and how close to the events they actually wrote it. And so it's not in our Bible, but of course other people wrote things during the first century, right? And there was a guy, a Jewish historian, his name was Josephus. And he was Jewish, but he was also with the Romans. And he wrote something called the Wars of the Jews in the year 75 AD. And in his writing, he talks about how 1.1 million people died at the hands of the Roman army coming in to destroy Jerusalem. That's a lot of people. And then, remember what Jesus said? That not one single stone would be left in place? Like, what's that all about? Well, here's not a Jesus follower, just a regular Jewish historian guy writing about what happened, the destruction of Jerusalem. And this is what he writes. He says, "Now, as soon as the army had no more people to slay or to plunder, because there remained none to be objects of their fury, for they would not have spared any had there remained any other work to be done." Now, this is written, 2,000 years ago, so some of the language is a little hard to understand. Basically, what he's saying is, there ain't no people left, right? They've gotten rid of all of them. They've dealt with all of them. They've destroyed all of them. They've taken captive all of them. There's no people. And so, because there's no people, well, then let's just put our fury towards the buildings, towards the stones, the objects. And then he says that the Caesar, who was Titus, gave orders that they should now demolish the entire city and the temple, but should leave as many as the towers standing as were in the greatest eminence, and then we'll skip a couple sentences there, in order to demonstrate to posterity what kind of city it was and how well fortified, which the Roman valor had subdued. What he's saying is nobody had a smartphone to take a picture. Nobody was recording video of the destruction of this city. And so they were going to completely wipe it out so that it was totally unrecognizable. But in order to celebrate their victory and their strength and their power, they were going to leave some of the towers up so that when they brought, their guests by and they said, "Oh, look over there. This was a fortress to the big city of Jerusalem." And they're like, "Where's Jerusalem?" "It was there. Trust me, it was there." And they destroyed all of it. Now imagine that happening in our time. Fast forward 40 years. The year is 2061. And somebody asks you, "Was there a city of Lancaster down the street?" And you're like, "There was," but you don't even recognize it anymore. Like, try to comprehend the level of destruction that was coming to the city of Jerusalem. And that's what Jesus saw. That's what Jesus knew as he was riding in. And so no wonder he cried, right? And why did that have to happen? Well, Jesus told us that they did not recognize it when God visited them. They, instead of receiving him, they killed him. And the nation as a whole of the Jews, they did not receive their Messiah. They did not receive God and their Savior. They didn't understand that Jesus was peace in their midst. And now it was too late. It was hidden from their eyes. So, here's the point. The main point, if you remember anything today, remember this. That Jesus was moved. He saw the people. He had compassion for the people. He had empathy for the people, but he did not move. Jesus did not move from his greater purpose, his greater mission, his whole entire reason why he came to this earth to begin with. He knew the cross was coming. He knew what he was going to experience in just a few short days. He knew it was all a part of the plan. And he wasn't going to give that up. He wasn't going to let his emotions control him. And I think if there's a couple things that we can take away from this time in Jesus' life, it's this. It's when is the last time you've cried about something? Do you allow yourself to experience emotion, or do you just stuff it in and hold it in and keep it in? Do you allow yourself to feel it? And then who do you feel for? Like, who comes to mind? Is it a family member or a friend, a community member? Maybe it's a group of people or a label of people that are dealing with something or experiencing a certain situation. Who gets your gut moving? And then what do you know that they don't know that causes your compassion, your feeling inside of you? Because some of you know stuff. Like you know that you can get through a divorce and you can actually get through to the other side and it is okay. God's with you every step of the way. Like, you know that. And some of you know what it's like to be homeless. But you know you can get through that. Some of you know what it's like to lose a job or a position. You know what it's like to lose a loved one. You know what it's like to be through abuse and horrible situations. You know how hard it is. You've cried those tears. You've felt those emotions. And so the question is, do you use those emotions to fuel your greater mission and purpose, or do you let your emotions take you off track, control your life? Which would you do? Because I imagine if I was Jesus and I was riding down the city on the donkey and I saw what Jesus saw, I don't know what I would do. Like, there would be something inside of me that was like, I see that woman, I see that child, I see that Roman soldier, I see that weapon, I see that. And there's something inside of me that's like, oh, like, I can't just let this happen. I can't just go along with it. Like, I need to do something. I need to stop it. I need to fix it. I need to do it. But Jesus, he didn't abandon his greater mission, his bigger purpose, because of an emotion, because of a feeling. But I think we do a lot of the time. At least I do. Maybe you do too. Like, let's just do some examples. What if you felt like you were unqualified to do something that God wanted you to do? You feel unqualified. And so, what do you do as a result? How do you let those emotions, those feelings control what you do? Well, you don't do anything, right? I feel unqualified and therefore I can't do anything. Or how about when we're at our job and we feel like, I don't want to do this anymore. And we feel like this is not the job for me. And we feel like this is not my job. This is not making me happy. And so what do? We allow those feelings to make us go over here and find a new job, because we hope that at this new job, we will just feel better. We'll feel happy, we will feel satisfied, and our feelings will be what we want them to be. And maybe a similar thing we do in relationships. We don't have the feelings that we want to feel. And we feel like it should be better. We feel we should be more happy. We feel we should be more satisfied. And so what do? We go and find a new relationship because we're in search of a better feeling, a better, more happy feeling for life. But let's not do that. Let's not let our feelings control us. Let's not just change and decide things based on our feelings, but let's let them influence us or fuel our greater purpose, fuel our mission. And so, if you feel unqualified to do something God wants you to do, don't allow that to control you where you don't do anything. Embrace that feeling of being unqualified and use it as fuel, as energy to rely even more on God. Because, newsflash, you're never going to feel qualified to do what God has called you to do. That's the secret. And so in that feeling, you have to put more faith, more trust in God, and that's where the true power really comes from. You're not letting your feelings control you. You're letting them influence you to accomplish the greater purpose, the greater mission. The same could be said about your job. You feel like it's not right. Okay? Maybe you can allow that feeling, those emotions, to help you see your job in a different way. Maybe it will help you see your job and have a whole different meaning, a whole different purpose for your job that's not even on your job description, which is crazy to think about. But you're allowing your feelings to influence and fuel your greater purpose, your greater mission. And sure, sometimes you do need a new job. Like sometimes you do. But if you're just going to switch a job and hope that that job makes you feel better, it's most likely not going to work out. We need to learn from our feelings, learn from our emotions, and then use them to learn from them, to fuel the new choice, the new place, the new decision where we can really lean into that the most. And the same could be said for our relationships. Like, let's just not find a new relationship in hope that we'll feel better. Let's learn from those emotions. Let's feel those things. And then let's use them to work on the current relationship, to help the current relationship be better, to work better for both of you. And in the case of dating, maybe you can learn something from a previous relationship and apply it into the next one. But if you just think that the new person, the new job, the new thing will give you all the feelings that you're hoping to feel, you most likely won't do that. And so we don't want to let our feelings control us, but we do want them to influence us. See, Jesus was moved. He was moved with compassion because he saw the city, he saw the people, he knew what was going to happen to them. But he did not move from his greater purpose, his greater mission. He experienced all of the deep emotions and stayed true to his mission and purpose of going to the cross. So, as we wrap up our time together today, how did Jesus allow his emotions to fuel his mission? How did he do it? It wasn't the first time that Jesus was moved with emotion, with compassion, when he saw the crowds of people. There was another time that was recorded by the disciple, the apostle Matthew. And when he saw the crowds, I just can imagine, like, Jesus came to this earth for them, to forgive them, to heal them, to help them have a relationship with God so that they could be born into the family of God. Like, Jesus came with them in mind. He saw them on the cross as he was dying for them. He knew them so intimately, so passionately. He loved them so much, as we sang about earlier. And so this is what Matthew says when he saw the crowds. Jesus traveled all throughout the towns and the villages, teaching in the synagogues and announcing the good news about the kingdom. He healed every kind of disease. He saw the crowds, and he had what on them? Compassion on them. Because why? They were confused and helpless, like a sheep without a shepherd. And he said to his disciples, the harvest is great, but the workers are few. So pray to the Lord who is in charge of the harvest. Ask him to send more workers into his field. So, do you feel like Jesus felt when it comes to seeing people? Like, who do you see in your mind? And do you see people this way like Jesus saw them? Like these people that Jesus saw were in need of a great shepherd. When was the last time that you cried about somebody who was far from God? Maybe a family member, a friend, someone in the community, somebody that you met. Does it move you? When was the last time that you connected with somebody on a personal level, with somebody going through a significant amount of pain or some hardship or some difficult situation? Like can you connect with somebody at that level when they're dealing with that? And do you take your faith seriously enough? Or do you, another way of saying that is, do you take your knowledge, like what you know, that someone far from God doesn't know? Do you take your faith serious enough to say, like, you might be far from God, your sin separates you from God, but I know Jesus came to die for you because he loved you. He died in your place. He was buried. He rose again the third day so that you could have a right relationship with God forever. Is there something inside of you that believes that, and that you see people in those terms, see people in that light? You're wondering what their relationship with God is. And maybe you're not wondering, maybe you know. Maybe that's why you're crying. Maybe that's what moves you to tears. See, these are all things that Jesus experienced when he saw the crowds. He saw the people in this way. And so we should do that too. So what does Jesus tell us we should do? Right? We feel these things, we feel the emotions, we see the people. What should we do? It's in red. Pray. We pray. Pray for what? For workers. For you and for me. So that we can go and reap the harvest, to bring in the harvest. The harvest is the people. And so we want to pray that we would see people this way and that we would be involved in the mission that God has for us. We want to pray for people to rise up and do something about the mess of this world. We want to pray that we would go to people in situations that are hard and difficult and scary. We want to pray that we would really feel for them. Pray that what moves inside of us is really like for a love for them, for a love for people, a compassion for people, and that we want to pray that God would raise us up to do something about it, to connect with a neighbor and a friend and really love them and really embrace them. And pray that we would be able to see our community, see the needs of our community, meet the needs of people in our community, and point people to Jesus. We need to pray that we can love people better, and really it comes from seeing people better. So let's pray for those things, and as we wrap up today, we'll do exactly that. God, we thank you that we can come and learn and see about how much you love us. You saw us even when we were far from you. When the crowds were shouting for your crucifixion, God, you loved them. You prayed for their forgiveness because they didn't know what they were doing. And God, I pray that today that we would see and experience your love for us in a new way, in a fresh way, to experience your compassion for us in a new way. To know that you see everything about us. You know all of our good things and all of our bad things. You know us at our best and you know us at our worst. And you love us so perfectly no matter what. So God, help us to feel that and then go and share that with the people that we love. Help us to love better. Help us to care for those in need in our community. For the people that we kind of mentioned during our message today. The people that come to our mind that just need you, Jesus. Help us to love them. Help us to feel for them. Help us to show compassion to them. Help us to empathize with them and show sympathy, to be concerned for them. Lord, may our emotions not control us, but may we use your example, and may we be just charged up and fired up to go and share this love, share this compassion with every single person that we meet. And I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.